real star behind the scenes is the piano technician, Ara Vartoukian. Good morning and thanks for bringing me seated at a gorgeous-looking piano.
Yeah, good morning and great to see you, and hopefully all the listeners will listen to the competition as well.
Yeah, well, tell us a bit about the competition first up. Levingston. Who was he and what is this competition about?
Levingston was a very, very well-known pianist and teacher. He came second to in the first Tchaikovsky piano competition. And ever since, he's been quite well known in Russia as a very, very good teacher and performer. And his daughter, Natasha, is the head of piano here at the Conservatorium. And 20 years ago, they established a piano competition in his honour, in his name. And this is, say, the 10th anniversary, the 10th competition, because it's every 2 years. It's a biannual competition.
We've just seen a young man who stepped out of this little, what do we call this, recording studio, practice area?
It's a studio where they practice. So they've allocated 4 studios for the competitors to practice in. He's one of the semi-finalists, so he got through. So he's practicing for his 3rd round performance on Sunday.
He looked a little weary. I noticed he had a bag of sweets, lollies, I guess, to keep the energy up. Is it hard work, playing a piano furiously?
Well, during the competitions, they do play for many, many hours, sometimes probably more than what they should, but it's not uncommon for them to practice 4, 6, 8 hours a day during the actual competition time or building up to the competition.
So tell me about you, Ara. How did you get into playing, tuning and fixing pianos?
As a young child, I loved the piano. I loved playing the piano. I learnt the piano from a young age. And when I finished high school, I wanted to continue as a pianist. At the same time, I loved tinkering with things. I loved working with my hands, and pianos fascinated me. And I used to pull my old piano apart to much my parents' dismay and try and put it back again. And when I applied for the piano course at the Conservatorium, there was also this little course I noticed in piano tuning. So I applied for that. I went for the audition and I was accepted, and I thought, okay, well, I'll do this and then perhaps I'll change over to piano afterwards. And after that first year, I actually absolutely loved it. And the teacher who was teaching me didn't want to go on, so they asked if I'd be interested in taking over the teaching, which meant going overseas and doing some more study. At the age of 18, I said yes. And I haven't looked back since. I came back and I taught the course for 5 years, and then I left and started my own business. And things just grew from there. And
would it be fair for me to say a piano technician is a bit like being a piano mechanic?
I suppose that's a way of putting it. Our job as a piano technician, and this is something that probably a little bit complex to explain quickly, is to give the oral impression of being in tune. Now, what does that mean? A piano is a very imperfect instrument, so we have to try and make it sound correct to the human ear. And it can be quite different from being scientifically correct. So if I was to get a frequency meter and tune every string on a piano correct to the scientific frequency, it would sound really badly out of tune to your human ear. So we have to then compromise to a certain level in order to get the thing to sound correct. So that's my job, and that's part of the things that we learn. So the job I do is part art, part science, and that's what I love about it.
Beautiful. Well, you have a gorgeous piano sitting in front of you here. What would be the first thing that you do to see if a piano is in tune?
The first step I would do is measure the frequency of the A, which is the standard international frequency. Usually around 440 or 441 is where most people tune their pianos to, most orchestras tune to. So I will tune that first. And then...
Hang on, so when you just hit that A key then... What are your ears telling you?
For that, because of the accuracy I have to maintain, I can't rely on my ear. Even people with perfect pitch can only get to within a certain degree of accuracy, not enough to be able to tune a piano. So to get that first frequency, I have to use a tuning fork or some a device to get me the actual correct frequency. From then, everything is done by comparison, but I don't listen to pitch. I listen to the interference between the harmonics. by listening to the interference between the harmonics, I can get to within less than 1/100th of a semitone in accuracy. So that's how I do. So the first note I would tune would be A, and then I would tune the D above that. Now, the harmonic series tells me that the fourth harmonic of A is the same as the third harmonic of D. So I play those two together, and I listen for that note up there to see what the interference is. And by adjusting the beat rate in that note, then I get the correct interval, and then I continue for that around the circle of fifths. So I get the whole octave correct, and then I expand that up and down the piano.
Wow, you weren't joking when it's part art, part science. Ara Vartoukian is a piano technician, much in demand. He's worked all over the world, and right now he is the star behind the scenes of the Levingston piano competition, which is happening in your city right now. Tell me about some of the most valuable or unusual pianos that you've worked on around the world.
Mostly, again, with the newer instruments, the top concert instruments which are used on the concert stage. It's very, very important that they are in perfect condition the whole time. There's 220 strings in a piano. An average tension of about 70 or 80 kilograms per string. So you've got about 15 to 20 tons pulling on the frame and about half to 1 ton on the soundboard. So it is a very, very deep mechanical instrument, and it does need very, very fine work the whole time.
How many different parts are there in a piano?
There's about 12,000 parts in a piano. There's about 100 parts for every note, and there's usually 88 notes. So just in the action alone, there's almost 9,000 parts, plus all the other bits and pieces that go around inside the piano. It is quite a complex mechanical beast.
It sure is. How long does it take to make a piano?
The better manufacturers take a year to actually put the piano together, but on top of that, then there's the seasoning processes of the timber that can usually take between 1 and 5 years on top of that.
Wow! So essentially 5 years to prep it, 1 year to make it, and then hopefully it's played for 100 years. What's the oldest piano you've ever worked on?
That I've worked on in terms of being correctly to be used on an everyday situation. From 1869 was the oldest one that I've worked on and restored. I have worked on older pianos, mainly for exhibitions and so on. But actual for a daily use piano, 1869 was the oldest Steinway that I worked on.
Gorgeous. Can you play a little bit on this piano, just to let us hear it?
Of course, this piano has now been practiced on for a week, perhaps 8 to 10 hours a day. So from where it was a week ago to where it is now, it's obviously moved quite a bit.
Who's tougher on a piano? Is it classical musicians? Is it jazz performers? Is it rock and rollers?
Oh, classical musicians, definitely. You'd be surprised how much effort that they put into the piano. And they're also, with most classical musicians, they're using the whole keyboard, whereas with a lot of other musicians, say rock and rolls, they're only using parts of the keyboard, not as intensively as the whole instrument.
What piano would, say, Billy Joel or Elton John or Tori Amos use? Is there a particular type of piano that those higher profile pianists tend to love? Popular music pianists, I should say.
All over the world, pretty much for the last 50, 60, 70 years or more, the Steinway has been pretty dominant in terms of what you find on the concert stage. There are other manufacturers that are coming up, but pretty much Steinway has been the dominant instrument. There's other instruments like the Yamaha, the Kawai, the Fazioli, and some others that are also coming into the fold these days. But still, they have a way to go to become the dominant instrument.
Why is that? Is it a particular sound that the Steinway has?
I think so. I think they got it right very early in the piece, and people like the sound and the touch and the feel, and they've been using it, and it's very reliable. You can go anywhere in the world and sit on a Steinway, and it'll be nice to play.
Lots of people listening might have a piano at home, and maybe it's something that, grandma and granddad passed on to them. How do you know if you've got a particularly valuable piano or if you should get it restored? Any advice for home pianists?
Absolutely. Get a good technician to have a look at it for you. and inspect it for you, like the RCV or NRMA will inspect the car for you.
Yeah.
The piano technicians will do the same thing. They are very complex instruments, so they do require a lot of work. Often with a very old piano, any piano is infinitely repairable, but it comes a point where the cost of the repairs exceeds the value of the piano. So you've got to be sure that you're not overspending on something which is not going to give you a reasonable result at the end. So that's something that a good qualified piano technician would be able to look at it for you and tell you. Particularly interesting is to see if the structure of the piano is okay. If the structure is okay and the mechanics is a little bit wonky, then by all means that can often be repaired. The felts and the leathers and so on can be repaired. But to repair the structure of the piano often is not worth it on an old upright.
Ara, clearly your skills as a technician are in demand, but your skills as a piano player are evident. Do you ever think, I wish I'd pursued the performing side of things rather than the technical side of things?
I suppose when I was 18 I thought so, but after working with so many fantastically talented young musicians, I think that I chose the right profession.
I don't know. Can you take us out with a bit of a burst, something else you might play around for enjoyment? I reckon you've still got it. Beautiful. Well, not fingers crossed. That's not what I should say to a piano technician. I was going to say fingers crossed for the contestants, the competitors. What should I say? Fingers gently protected and, well insured for the competition. Enjoy it. And thanks so much for taking us inside your art, science, mechanic, piano world.
Thank you very much, and I enjoy doing it, and that's something that I want to do for the rest of my life. And if I can assist other musicians in the background, because that's my role. My role is as the support person for the musician, and that's something I enjoy doing.